I back Sarah, think she's a good egg, think she's got some good sauce coming, and I think she is horrendously underrated and believe that she deserves far more of a following than she currently has. Back in business, Hello Kitty has returned. You can't really see, but I'm wearing it and you have to believe me. And we're looking at Lift with Sarah, get huge quads with 3 exercises. And I like that because I don't like complexity, nor do I like a lot of volume. And I already have an idea of what 3 exercises I would choose. And we're gonna see if they align with what Sarah's gonna choose. Before we do so, I need to tell you some things. If at any point throughout this entire video, you actually just learned something from the video, I would very much appreciate it if you did subscribe to the channel because it tells YouTube I'm worth watching. And if I'm worth watching, YouTube will reward me like a toxic relationship, making me feel like without their approval, I'm not worth anything. I've got a little surprise for you, nutrition guide. So I've got the TFNL clothing coming next month, end of this month, nutrition guide. It's gonna be bloody splendid, simple, but effective, and also bloody cheap as well. So you're laughing there. But now we're gonna crack on with the video. So let's have a gander.
Squats used to be #1 on my hit list, but with a few modifications, they quickly became my favourite exercise to grow my legs. To make them more enjoyable, you should really be picking a squat variation that works best for you and your body. A few of these variations include the basic back squat, the front squat, or my personal favourite, the Smith machine squat.
Banging, incredible. I love that because fundamentally I kind of split quad training up into 3 primary sections. This is just preference. It's nothing more than that. I look at lengthened, mid, and shortened position. If I can tick all of those boxes across the week, I'm probably doing okay. A squat pattern, like so, is going to be a lengthened position movement. I like that. Back squat is fine if you want to do it, but unless you're a powerlifter or it's relevant to your sport, you don't really need to because the stability limitations there. I swap it for like a Smith machine squat, a hack squat, or a pendulum squat. Look at that depth. That's what I want to see, is that depth. Are the shoelaces untied? I feel like her shoelaces are untied. That depth is what I want to see. When doing any kind of squat-based pattern, when in any kind of quad-based pattern anyway, I favour going very low. And that's, again, subject to the individual. You go as low as you possibly can. Sarah here has incredible range of motion. She can really drive the knees forward, which means she can really lengthen the quads, and in my opinion, probably get the most out of this squat pattern. So that being #1, 100% aligns with me. I like it. Oh, neglecting range of motion. It's like we're the same person. We're not, but we can pretend.
With an exercise as gut-wrenching as this, it's only natural that you want to get through it as quickly as possible. But here's where another huge mistake comes in when trying to grow your legs. You want to make sure that you're going slowly through this movement and really focus on stretching your knee over your toes. Again, to get the most stretch possible in our quads. This will make sure that we're targeting our quads as much as possible and not let other big muscle groups like our glutes or our hamstrings take over in this movement.
Your hamstrings are going to be far less relevant during that movement than you think. It's going to be primarily a bit more adductor. People often assume when they're doing like a squat pattern that the hamstring sensation they're feeling is hamstrings. It's not. It's probably the adductors, because one of the adductor muscles does tie in right down there. Tempo of movement, you mentioned about going slow. I don't back it. Tempo's not really that relevant within reason. So what I mean by that is time under tension is not something I focus on. I just think of controlled eccentric, mainly for technical standardization, and a fast concentric. Slow down, fast up. Slow eccentric for the technical standardization, fast concentric primarily for motor unit recruitment. Boom, boom, boom. Simple as that. A split squat is a fantastic option here. It's not my favorite, and that's not just because of my personal issues with the split squat that we are working through in therapy. We're actually now in exercise therapy where we are talking through our problems, addressing why I might have issues with the split squat and why the split squat seemingly gets a lot of pleasure from hurting me. But what I would say is not very stable movement. And when a movement's not very stable, it's harder to push effectively, especially closer to failure. So what we're looking at when really honing in the realm of hypertrophy is how stable can you make this movement? If you are going to split squat, is a good movement, hold on to something. Stabilize it, make it better, reduce stability demands. Or flip over to a leg press variation, unilateral leg press. Very similar movement, much more stable. Leg press in general, a fantastic movement as well. These movements are very much mid-position dominant movements. So we've gone from squats being lengthened to like a leg press or split squat variation being mid-position. We've already ticked 2 of the 3 boxes I was hoping for. So although I don't necessarily align with everything Sarah's saying here, we're on a very similar mental track. Got to throw it out there very quickly. Linked down below, you've got the link to a few things. You've got the link to apply for TFNL coaching, where you can apply to work with myself on a one-to-one online basis to help you achieve your goals, whatever they may be, and also wherever you may be in the world. You've also got the link to the TFNL workout guides, which are bloody fantastic, bloody reasonably priced, and also bloody informative. Not only do they tell you what to do, they tell you why to do it and even show you how to do it too. And on top of that, you've also got the link to the TFNL group coaching, which for less than $1 a day gives you access to a bloody fantastic program written by me, which you can choose to either do at home or at the gym, whatever tickles your pickle. And you can also talk to me there as well, because there is a community message board where we can discuss things and send things to each other as well. So if any of those tickle your pickle, have a gander at the description down below and see what's occurring.
Doing an isolation exercise like the leg extension should really be a staple in anyone's quad routine, because unlike our 2 previous exercises, an isolation movement will allow us to solely focus on our quads and not involve any other muscle group in the movement.
I completely agree. I think the leg extension should be a staple for quad training, but not necessarily for the reasons Sarah's indicated here, where she spoke about how you can slowly focus on the quads. I'm not really quite sure what that means by slowly focusing on them or slowly targeting them. What I would do it more for is the rec fem recruitment. Quad means 4, which means there are 4 kind of heads, muscles, whatever you want to say, of the quads. And to train the quads effectively, you want to ensure that all 4 heads are being prioritized. So the rec fem is biarticular, which means it crosses at both the hips and the knees, which means that if you were to do a squat pattern, it's lengthening at one end and shortening at the other. Therefore, its respective length doesn't change. We don't want that when looking at building muscle and training muscles, actually, effectively, I should say. The leg extension, because it's a single joint movement, so an isolation movement, is only focusing on knee extension, which means that the rec fem, one of the muscles of the quads, can be effectively worked and utilized through a relevant range of motion here, because again, it is effectively shortening and lengthening as you go up and down. Without doing so, without doing like a leg extension movement or a sissy squat pattern, which again is harder for most people to do, a leg extension is much easier to get right, you are neglecting one of the muscles of the quads, which then in turn implies you're not training the quads as effectively. And then you also theorize whether in neglecting a muscle of the quads, could you be contributing or potentially increasing the risk of injuries associated to underdevelopment. So if your rec fem isn't developed due to you not training it properly, could that risk putting your knees in a position where they may be more susceptible to injury, things like that. To note, the leg extension is a shortened position dominant movement, which means we've gone from lengthened squat pattern, you can't see my hand bits here, mid position, leg press, split squat, whatever you want to say, and then shortened leg extension. Ticked all those boxes, and from movement selection, maybe not necessarily justification, but the movement selection I would very much align with. With all my videos, this is, like I often say, it's simply my opinion. And just because I don't necessarily agree with everything that Sarah is saying here, doesn't mean it's wrong. It's an opinion, and we have maybe slightly different opinions here. Doesn't mean anyone's right or wrong. You've got to identify what's best for you, and you can do that, trial and error, and your own research. The thing I'll note here is Sarah doesn't have a huge platform. We have a very similar subscriber base, about 70 odd thousand, and I would argue that Sarah is probably one of the most underrated fitness content creators probably on YouTube. Because I see a lot of these creators with huge platforms that quite frankly are spreading some pretty outdated information, and sometimes even misinformation in that. With Sarah, although I haven't seen all of her content, I've seen a good chunk of it, I am very impressed by what I see. We may not necessarily align on everything. The volume's a bit excessive for me personally, but I like the number of exercises. I like how simple and effective it is. I think Sarah is a good one to follow. Again, is my opinion that relevant? Probably not. But honestly, like I said, although I may not agree with everything she's saying, we align on a lot of things, and I really appreciate the direction she goes in, and I really appreciate the fact that she's updating and altering and accommodating her information as the literature presents itself and new research comes to light. I respect that. I'm going to conclude with the fact that I agree with fundamentally every movement she suggested. I think that if you do those 3 movements across the week and with sufficient intensity, adequate volume I'd say, you're probably sorted for quad training, because it doesn't need to be that complicated, and just get really bloody strong at all of them. Don't care what you're trying to achieve. Weight loss, muscle gain, strong in general, just get really bloody strong at all those movements, and you'll be baffled at the results you see, especially when looking at your quad development. I back Sarah. Think she's a good egg, think she's got some good sauce coming, and I think she is horrendously underrated and believe that she deserves far more of a following than she currently has, and I have no doubt she'll get there eventually. As with all my videos, it's just my opinion, and I'd appreciate yours in the comment section below. So let me know, what is your #1 go-to favourite quad movement and why? Until the next one, thank you for tolerating me, thank you for tolerating Hello Kitty, and thank you for tolerating the video.